I can tell you probably one of my most proudest moments is earning my lieutenant's badge as a crossing guard, wearing my bright orange harness and adorned with my lieutenant badges. That's when it started for me. I didn't know what criminal justice was. I didn't know all that, but I did know I love serving, and I did know I love being in a position where I could help others. I accepted that statement, and I can't tell you how much it motivated me. Not so much necessarily within the academy, because at this point we were almost done with the academy, but it lit a fire. I'm competitive, okay? But that right there was one of the things that I said, okay, I can guarantee you I will be the best agent that graduated from this class. There are certain things that a leader can do to recreate success, even if it looks different, okay? And that's all about how you develop, right? How you mentor people, how you put them in a position to be successful. That's how you get results. So for me, it was always, and it is, very simple. It's all about creating the best team that I can create, putting people in positions, empowering them to do the job, and guess what? Allowing them to do the jobs. If you're in it for the right reasons, you're not in it for yourself, right? It's not about you. I got this thing, and I mean this to my very core. When you become a leader, it's no longer about you. It's about everybody, every single soul that you're charged to lead. That's what leadership is about.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal,
And we can learn from those mistakes.
and together we can bridge the divide.
Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring. Those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest of walls of oppression and resistance. Robert F. Kennedy. Growing into a true leader involves developing key qualities like self-awareness, integrity, and communication skills, while also fostering a growth mindset and building strong relationships. It's about continuous learning, seeking feedback, and empowering others, while leading by example and demonstrating resilience. Ultimately, a true leader inspires, motivates, and fosters innovation within their team. Today's guest says that once you become a leader, it's not about you anymore. Not everyone embraces the idea of being a leader, whether it's a formal title or being a natural informal leader that has the respect of many without that title or rank. Today's guest has had success at every level. He doesn't run from the challenge. He actually seeks it out. The mark of a true leader is uplifting those underneath you so they can become the absolute best versions of themselves for the profession, and more importantly, their families they go home to. David Downing III, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Dallas. We have another familiar voice as a co-host, Margaret Bedoya. She's fresh off her episode, and she is back to Dallas. Her and David are going to be teaching some of our new deputy chiefs the next couple of days, and the majors and the leadership courses. Margaret, thanks for being back.
No, thanks for having me.
Kent's here.
Oh, thanks for having me too.
Yeah,
Joe.
we haven't fired you. You're on the performance plan, but we haven't fired you.
I'm working.
Yeah,
on
you're
it.
not fired yet. we got a lot to get to. Chief Como speaks very highly of both of you, and that's how we met. And I'm just happy that y'all actually are coming and teaching our new leaders and our longtime leaders here in Dallas some things you have picked up. Both of y'all have picked up over the years on leadership. So it's really impressive, and it's refreshing that that Chief is putting y'all on. And for one, I'm happy you are coming back to Dallas on the regular. But it's nice to see that he is investing into his leadership, because everybody underneath him, he's wanting to make better.
Yeah, it's it's a special opportunity. I say for both Margaret and I. We're passionate about leadership, and kind of the selfish thing is every time we do this, we walk away with a lot of kernels of knowledge, more than we came with. And just the sheer fact that there'll be a lot of knowledge sitting at the table, and our way of doing things is not your traditional way in terms of teaching. It's a lot of discussion-based type of things that we do.
No, I wish one of these days maybe I can get to be a fly on the wall in one of these classes. I'd love to. I'm not a rank or a leader, but I would love to sit in and see how this is done.
Well, I'll stop you right there. You're a leader. That's
Well,
what we
I
start
appreciate
at.
it.
Everybody has the ability, and everybody is called to lead. It's just the fact of, do you want to lead?
We got a long journey to go on, but I want to start at the top. Can you talk about where you grew up and home life?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So I was born in Trenton, New Jersey, many years ago now. I lived in Trenton, New Jersey, and to the point that I went to kindergarten. And it was around that time that my mother and my father divorced. Unfortunately,
right.
My father had a really, really bad, terrible problem with alcohol. He was an alcoholic, and based on his alcoholism and the things that transpired with my mother, to include domestic violence, that's what kind of prompted the move. So we moved from Trenton, as I said, when I was in kindergarten. We moved to an area called Morrisville, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
Across the bridge.
Yeah, okay. So, thanks for sharing that. So, alcoholism, and you happen to be sitting in the Dallas PD's Wellness Unit. We'll kind of get into that. And Margaret, it's kind of in her wheelhouse of her career and the trauma team. Alcoholism has ruined many lives, many marriages, many careers.
Yes, it has. And my mother, that was her biggest fear is, and as she says, and my wife now says, we gotta stop it now. It wreaked havoc on our life. When I say our life, my mother and my brother. I have a brother who's 7 years older than me, and my mother. We moved, maybe, as I said, in Morrisville. It's probably about a 20-minute drive from Trenton, New Jersey, over a bridge that they call Trenton Makes the World Take.
Okay.
So we moved there at kindergarten age, and my mother and I and my brother, we moved into a one-bedroom apartment. For the time that I was in the kindergarten to the 6th grade, my mother slept on a couch, and my brother and I shared the one bedroom that we had, and we slept together until he went off and went to the military.
And it was just you and Mom after that?
Yes, just me and Mom. We stayed there for a little bit longer, and then we moved again to a place called Plainsboro, New Jersey. Very rural at the time, so it was a big difference from Trenton and Morrisville to Plainsboro. And I did a year, actually 2 years in Plainsboro before ultimately I did a short time in Newark, New Jersey.
And at that time, she got out of the relationship because of the alcohol abuse and the physical abuse. Did she not remarry during that point of y'all growing up when your brother left?
Not then. She dated one guy, but I don't think he was a good suitor. At least that's what I told her anyway.
Yeah.
So no, she dated, but she never remarried then. But ultimately, we did move away, and I finally settled into a town in northern Florida called Monticello, Florida, and that's where I went to high school at Monticello, Florida.
And you got into sports.
That's where. Well, if I backtrack, I say I got into sports and athletics when my mom divorced. That was my happy place from the time that I was in the first grade. I've always been active in athletics. And
What drew you to it? Why was that your happy place?
oh man, if I'm truthful, it was the coaching. When you don't have a father that lives with you, but you're a part of an organized team that requires practices that you're going to be around a male figure, that's huge, especially if you got the right male figure.
And that's crucial for young kids, boys and girls. That there's so many kids that grow up in single parent homes, and they do not have a strong father figure. But then a lot of them go to the coaching.
Yes.
Because coaches they're the leader, and a lot of them can become father figures and guide.
Absolutely. I can recall vividly every coach that I had from the time that, I played little league football all the way up until the point that I played 1 year of college football. Every one of them, and each one of them entered my life at a time that I actually needed them severely. It's amazing the impact that they can have, and each one is different. I remember probably when I was in the 7th grade, one of my first coaches, and he was also a teacher at the school. His name was Mr. Matuza, and he was aware of my family situation. And I remember him pulling me aside and said, "Hey, you got a lot of talent athletically. If you keep down this path and you nurture and you work hard, you'll be fine." I don't even know if he knew the seeds that he was sowing in me in that 5-minute conversation. I reflect back on it today, and I was, as they say, knee-high to a grasshopper around that time when we had that conversation.
But it left an impression.
Oh, no doubt.
You're in Dallas, Texas, because of our leader and because of your leadership qualities. That's why you're here to make our department better and make our leaders, maybe give them some perspective. But it sounds like it started way back when you're knee-high to a grasshopper from coaches.
Yes, it did. I mean, for me, sports is the basic term of what you do as it relates to athletics, right? But the bigger term, as I see it, is team. And it's all about, for me, being a part of the best team that I can be a part of. And fortunate for me, I played on some outstanding teams, and I've always looked to transfer that from an athletic standpoint to my professional life, and as well, my personal life as well.
Yeah, the small team dynamics that come from being involved in sports at a younger age, or even through your adolescence all the way up, I think it correlates very, very easily to dealing with small group dynamics in your workplace.
Absolutely. I remember in high school, there was a senior. Actually, he was a junior then when I was a freshman. His name is Jimmy Brookins. Jimmy Brookins wore number 14. When I became a freshman, I wore number 14 on the junior varsity because I wanted to be like Jimmy Brookins. Jimmy Brookins was and is a natural-born leader. And he doesn't even know how I feel about him today. And, the true leaders and the ones who leave that indelible stamp on you, you don't have to tell them. They just do what they do naturally. And I getting prepared to this, I was thinking about that, and I just had an opportunity to look him up. And what is he doing? Part of his life, he's coaching. Went to Valdosta State, All-American, just a great guy, and now a pastor, doing wonderful things. So shout out to Jimmy Brookins if you're listening.
Shout out Jimmy Brookins. And it's so great to have true leaders, true natural leaders, and leaders that do it for the right reason, and it is to truly uplift people.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
That's what you should be doing.
You should be doing.
If you're a leader, it's all about uplifting, mentoring, and providing an opportunity for what I call the bench. Are you building the bench?
Tell us about Troy State.
That was 4 years of my life that I think shaped me tremendously. in a lot of ways. I went to Troy State in 1986, and I went there to play football.
What position?
That's a long story, but so I started off. I was recruited to go in and play strong safety. But for whatever the reason, when I got there, it was about the second or third day of practice. They moved me over to running back. I had never played running back in my life, so for whatever reason, I became a running back when I was in college, but never hit the field because I got redshirted most of all freshmen that came in at Troy. And at that time, we had a great team. We maybe 2 years before that won the national championship, won the Gulf South championship when I was there, and then won the national championship again a year or two after I stopped playing.
That's fascinating. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that DeMarcus Ware?
Yes,
yeah,
DeMarcus Ware.
Dallas Cowboy great DeMarcus Ware. I remember. So I was watching that. I was watching that draft when the Cowboys got him, and I had not heard of him, but he went very high in that draft, and I was like, well, they know something.
Yeah. DeMarcus, I don't know him personally, but obviously when you come from a small school and you have somebody representing you at
Hall of Famer.
At the level he did. I enjoyed his play, other than when he played my team, which is all of our Super Bowl winning champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Can we just wrap it up?
Well, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a nice flight back. Fly, Eagle, fly away. No, I'm just kidding. I really do. I got to say though, I'm a diehard Cowboy fan, and I grew up here. Now it's making sense with the connection with the Eagles. You go in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Couldn't go Steelers, could you? You had to.
Well, I love Lynn Swan.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
no, I
yes.
mean, well, they
Hard not to.
they. Listen, if the Eagles weren't in the Cowboys division, I would not dislike them as much. But I do have to say I like Jalen Hurts and I like Saquon Barkley, and they how could you not?
Yeah, it'd be hard not to.
No, I dread playing them twice a year. So,
Yeah.
but the Steelers though that is a historic champion. People don't talk about the Cowboys being America's team. I mean, we've got a long history of winning. Yeah. Man, the Steelers. They've been impressive for a very long time.
Oh yeah, and I mean, listen, for what it's worth, they got probably one of the best coaches in the NFL right now. I mean, you talk about a leader.
Yeah, no, there was talks a few years ago, and I like Cowher, going back to Bill Cowher. Listeners, I promise we're not going to stay on. Pittsburgh Steelers talk, but Cowher and then go into Tomlin. There was talks that he might have left Pittsburgh, and I was hoping the Cowboys would have got him because he is. There's a reason he's there, still there. Why did you choose criminal justice as a major?
Oh wow, it's an interesting story. When I was in elementary school, back in that time. They had a position for students, and it was called a crossing guard. And I was selected. It was kind of like peer selected, and also selected by the principal and the vice principal to become a crossing guard. So that day one, I mean, when I became a crossing guard, I said, man, this is pretty neat, and it created kind of like an insatiable desire to serve. And I can tell you probably one of my most proudest moments is earning my lieutenant's badge as a crossing guard, wearing my bright orange harness and adorned with my lieutenant badge. That's when it started for me. I didn't know what criminal justice was. I didn't know all that, but I did know I love serving, and I did know I love being in a position where I could help others.
What point during your college, though, you were there as an athlete, but when did you start? You knew you wanted to serve, and you liked going from crossing guard, and you were building towards something. When did you know you were going to make it a career in law enforcement?
Yeah, I knew when I entered into that, Troy. I came in with the mindset of criminal justice degree. Wasn't quite sure if it was going to be a police officer or a sheriff's officer, but I knew it was going to be something in law enforcement. So that's kind of where I started at. And after finishing college, I was fortunate enough to get my first job as a probation officer for the state of Florida. So after graduating, My wife and I met her in college. We moved to Sarasota, Florida, and that's where we started, I'd say, my law enforcement journey in earnest.
And what year was this?
This was in 1991.
Okay. And when you started that job, how was that? How did that go?
I mean, I tell you, it was initially one of those jobs that I just loved. I mean, the only problem that I had with the job long term is it just wasn't challenging enough. It did what it needed to do for me in terms of offer me the requisite experience, so I could apply for federal jobs and also police departments. Because when I came out of college, it's pretty tough in the areas that I was looking even to get on the police department. They wanted some type of experience, and they were bringing in folks that actually came from other departments and that were senior and of that nature. Yeah.
Times change now,
Yep.
man. We just it's hard to get people to want to do this job now.
Yeah.
Trap set up outside.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're hiring David.
If I didn't
Margaret,
have a bad back, I'd probably consider it.
Hey, man. Well, you being amongst friends,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you're working there. When did you decide you're going to take your talents to the Drug Enforcement Administration?
Yeah. So probably about a year after is when I started applying in earnest. I started doing research to figure out which agency it was that I was going to look to hire on. And right away, almost instantaneously, I got attracted with the DEA, or the Drug Enforcement Administration. I did some research and started reading some books, and because of my past history of where I came from, that agency was uniquely situated that I could give back in such a way that it's things that I've seen from my past in terms of drug abuse. So that was one of the things that kind of gave me the fever to try to pursue that as a career.
Yeah, that's interesting. You really, everything a lot of things still go back to you as a child and what you were in your early life.
Yeah, blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people that grow up in certain circumstances and situations that there's always forks in the road, and you mentioned it earlier about these coaches, and each of these coaches played a role at a specific time in your life, and I would imagine you had many forks in the road.
Yeah.
That they kind of helped you take that right instead of the left.
Yeah, absolutely. That, along with a mother who was absolutely dedicated to make sure that her two sons made it out. That helped. She was and she still is phenomenal. I mean, she worked 3 jobs, and so because she worked 3 jobs, I was that proverbial latchkey kid.
What is your mother's name?
Lucretia Brown. Yeah, she's a special one. So she raised us, and she didn't listen to me, and she didn't put up with much. My brother was 7 years older than me, and she says, hey, I don't know where you're going, but when you graduate, you're getting out of here. True story. The day my brother graduated, the next day, the recruiter was there to pick him up to take him to the United States Army.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And it's the listeners are about to get your whole life played out, right in front of them. And we got some twists and turns for you. But you said you did research in the DEA, and it kind of like where you came from and where you started, it kind of helped make your decision. DEA was fairly new organization at the time. It was just 20 years old when you applied at that point.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. But also what attracted me is they are and were and still are a single mission agency. So it's if drugs is what you want to do in terms of a career, that's where you need to be. Now, if you have an inkling to investigate or look at different other violations, maybe other agencies will suit your needs. But for me, that's what my focus was. I'm always good at kind of narrowing in on what I want to do and just concentrate all my efforts. And then that's where DEA became particularly attractive to me.
What was the hiring process like?
Oh my God, it was. Listen, so when I hired on, or actually I should say, when I first applied for DEA, I did so maybe a year or so after being with probation and parole. I went through the whole process. Okay, I went through the background. I went through an extensive background. I went through physical fitness tests. I went through a physical. And the day that I finished my physical fitness test, which was the last requirement for the application process, I get home, and we don't have cell phones then, right? So I get home.
Maybe a pager.
Yeah. So I get home, and I check my voicemail. And on my voicemail was a voicemail message from DEA headquarters that say, I'm sorry to tell you, but there has been a hiring freeze imposed. And don't call us, we'll call you.
When you say voicemail, do you mean your answering machine?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That was pre-call notes.
Yes.
You know, yeah. Call notes were fancy. You know.
Yeah.
It was a digital age.
On my hardline phone.
Yeah. Nobody has those things.
Yeah.
You got that. How disheartening was that?
Oh man, it was a crushing blow. I mean, I had poured everything that I could into that, and it was, you know, my ultimate dream was to become a special agent with Drug Enforcement Administration. I knew that it would happen, and I just didn't know that it would take as long as it ended up taking for them to lift the freeze and to resume the hiring practice. It actually took probably around 3 years is what I went through. And if you can imagine, for 3 years, coming home from work, going to the mailbox, opening it up, and just hoping that you see the proverbial 8x11 manila envelope with the Drug Enforcement Administration's address. I did that every day, including Sunday.
And kept checking that voicemail.
Kept checking the voicemail. Well, I didn't have to check it. I just looked for the red light.
The red light flashing, yeah. and I have like a digital 1 or 3 or the numbers. 3 years. So you continued working in a probation for that long?
Yeah. So I continued to work. And so at one point it was really hard to, you know, keep my spirits up, but I kept working. And eventually what I did is I got back into school and got in grad school and was pursuing a degree in public administration. And my wife and I around this time decided we wanted to try to buy our first house. So went to grad school. I picked up a part-time job at a homeless shelter and did my job as a probation officer. So I kept busy to kind of keep my mind
grounded. Yeah,
absolutely.
No,
absolutely.
that makes sense. So once you finally got the call, can you tell us about that? Or you finally got the folder in the mail?
No, so actually I did get a call. Okay. And it was an interesting call. It was just after I had registered for my last class to get my master's degree in public administration. I remember it as going into the office, a probation officer, and I got a call from headquarters, and they offered me the job, and they were like, "Hey, we resume hired, and we'd like to bring you back on, but we want to hire you as a GS7." Now, when the process originally started with me, they were going to hire me as a GS9. So I said, "Listen, I'm flattered. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to accept your job as a GS7, not when I have more experience and I just registered for my last class that I'm not going to be able to take because I'm going to take the job." So I hung up. They called me back 5 minutes later. I was like, thank God.
Right, yeah. Man. I bet that was gut-wrenching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they called back 5 minutes later, and they offered me the job with one condition. You got to be there in 2 weeks.
Well, that was probably a no-brainer.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, listen, I would have been there yesterday.
Yeah. So you got into the academy. What was the? Let me ask you this, and I wish I would have asked Margaret this. What was the biggest challenge when you got there?
Oh man, it was numerous challenges. Probably for me and a lot of the folks in my academy class. I think we were the second class to come into the academy after they lifted the freeze.
Was it a large class?
No, it was no hiding in that class. We graduated 18. It was very difficult to hide. It was challenging because we had instructors and we had counselors that had not participated in the academy environment, although they were assigned there for 3 years. So they were sitting there waiting with bated breath for us to come back.
Yeah, no, I bet, especially the defensive tactics folks and the PT.
Oh yeah.
That ran you in the ground.
So what was it that you had problems with?
Well, I think the challenging part for me when I got there was just proving that I belong there. Just proving I belong there. And of the 18 people that they brought in when we got back, the vast majority of them had what I call traditional law enforcement experience. They were police officers, they were sheriff's officers, things of that. So that was one of the challenges, and quite frankly, the other challenge is I was the only African American that they brought in that academy class, and it wasn't a problem, because I had requisite experience where I've moved places, and that was the case. But what made it, what I always say is, it's not a problem until it's a problem. And it did become somewhat of a problem at one point wherein I was told by one of my academy classmates, hey, listen, you do realize that you're a token black. That's when it became a problem. But I accepted that statement, and I can't tell you how much it motivated me. Not so much necessarily within the academy, because at this point we were almost done with the academy, but it lit a fire. I'm competitive, okay? But that right there was one of the things that I said, okay, I can guarantee you I will be the best agent that graduated from this class. Yeah.
It brought out the Trojan, that Troy Trojan in you there.
It did.
No,
it did.
yeah. Margaret talked about the length of the academy. It was fairly short.
Yeah, it's 16 weeks is what it was when I went through.
Okay, that's a lot of information to get in.
Oh, it is, especially when you don't have previous experience. Listen, I went to the academy. You're talking to a guy who had never shot anything but a revolver. I didn't even know how to load a magazine, so it was it was learning as I went.
That's sometimes a good thing, though. You don't carry in bad habits.
Yeah. So they say, and that's true, and I do agree with it. They didn't have to reteach me how to shoot based on their requirements.
So your first assignment, you tell us how that had to feel graduating, proving that dude wrong.
Yeah,
at the token, you graduate, you become a special agent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that ranks up there with almost behind childbirth for my kids. When you accomplish something like that, and I find myself after graduation just kind of staring at that badge and looking at it, and the first time I flew back, and I got to go to the airport, and I had to declare myself as an armed law enforcement officer. That sense of pride, it was unbelievable. I mean, and just graduating and making it through and getting that first assignment to Houston, Texas, it was a remarkable experience.
Tell us about Houston, because that is it still is. It is a big hub for the country, especially when it comes to the drug war.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't have picked a better place to be assigned at.
Did you
first.
get to pick?
Well, so this is how it worked when I was going through. They had the requisite number of slots available for the basic agents that were in the academy. So when I graduated, it was 18 of us. They had 18 slots. And no rhyme or reason in terms of where it was. It was, there were several Los Angeles spots. There were several Detroit spots, several New York spots, one or two Houston spots, I think. So kind of like that. And what they do is they put you in a room, and all the counselors leave, and they say, you guys work it out and figure out where you're going to go.
One sword in the middle of the room.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, I'm looking at L.A., and no way I'm going to L.A. That ain't happening. So I'm looking at where can I afford to live? And, I didn't know much about Houston. So ultimately we selected Houston as the place that we wanted to go. And we got blessed enough to end up in Houston as opposed to, at the time, New York and L.A.
Then you had the Texas heat.
Oh, that's a different kind of heat.
Yeah, you're not up. It's different from Florida as well.
Well, and it's really bad when you're a new agent and you report to Houston, Texas, and you show up on your first day of surveillance, and they give you a Cougar, the car that I had assigned to me. Yeah, Mercury Cougar is what I had, and hey, I was so happy that they gave me a car and they gave me a gas card that I didn't care what it looked like. Free gas, and it was great until we went on surveillance, and I realized that the air conditioning didn't work.
Yeah,
it was like 110 degrees out there, but I can tell you what, I didn't complain because I had a free car and I had a gas card.
What
and
model?
You're a special agent.
Yes.
What year was that Mercury Cougar?
Man, that thing had to be that's probably a late 80s.
My first car was a 1987 Mercury Cougar.
Yeah.
It was
Nice.
it was a boat,
Yeah,
but it only fit like two people. Like you couldn't fit anybody in the back seat.
They
That's
could
for sure.
drive through this room and keep going.
It probably still would. Yeah.
So what year was this when you got out to Houston?
We got there 95.
Okay.
1995. Yeah.
So Pablo Escobar's run ended in 93.
Yeah.
And that's very well documented. I'm a big fan of the book Killing Pablo.
Yeah.
It's a great book. There was a power struggle going on in Colombia after that happened. And how did that look as far as directives? You being in Houston, were you aware of or did you see that, or were you aware of that?
Yeah, it was interesting. When I first got to Houston in '95, the violators that we worked by and large were of Colombian descent. My first cases that I worked, I shouldn't say worked, that I supported, because I came into a group where I got to say this. I came into a group that I reported as the only junior agent. I was a GS9. Everybody in the group was a GS13. They were senior agents. It was an absolute blessing because they weren't just senior agents. They were senior working agents. They were the cream of the crop, arguably the best group in DEA at the time. That's what I went into. So the cases that they were working there, they were all Colombian trafficker based. And it was interesting because, and we'll go through it, but it was a seismic shift maybe two to 3 years after being there, where our investigative focuses didn't necessarily concentrate on the Colombian violator in Houston proper, but the Mexican violator in Houston proper. It shifted.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because now look at it, what's going on today at our borders. So, what can you talk about some of the cases that you kind of like found yourself? Margaret, I mean, she jumped in on a big one when she started.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about some of your cases?
Yeah. So I would be remiss if I didn't say when I got to Houston. Back then, the backup supervisor, who was the number 2 guy, was the guy that wielded the biggest sword in the group. I mean, there was a lot of respect for that guy or girl. The GSs allowed them to run the group. So in that case, it was a guy by the name of Bob Boudreaux. And Bob Boudreaux, really nice guy, and there was a guy named Mike McDaniels. And I'm setting this up and I'm saying it for a reason. Mike McDaniels he's probably largely responsible for my ascent in DEA. I got to the group and I went to Boudreaux, threw myself on the sword and said, listen, I want to learn how to write wires. Is there any way that I can learn how to do that? Being the man he was, he says, absolutely. The next day, Mike McDaniel says, hey, I heard you want to learn how to write wires. He says, come to my house tomorrow and bring your wife. And we went to his house, and my wife and his wife sat up and talked, and we were there for 13 hours, writing my first 60-page affidavit. So huge respect for Mr. Daniels and Mike McDaniels and Mr. Boudreaux for giving me that opportunity. And that's where it started for me in earnest, with the investigations that I worked on.
What are some, like, as far as the types, so like cocaine? Yeah.
Sure.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, absolutely. So, the first case that I worked, it was mostly back then. It was all cocaine. There were some marijuana cases, but by and large, we worked cocaine cases, and it was cocaine that obviously was coming from Colombia, and initially it was being controlled as a transport by Colombian traffickers. Eventually, that changed, and it changed over where the Mexicans were doing the transport. So the first case that I worked was a case called Omar Lovato. It was shortly after Mike McDaniel showed me how to write a Title III. So I worked that case in earnest for 1 year, and I think I drafted maybe 5 or 6 Title IIIs. And I got to tell you, it was an absolute complete failure. It was a complete, utter failure. We seized no dope. We didn't arrest anybody, but we spent a whole lot of money on wiretaps. and I learned a lot from it. I learned a whole lot from it. I learned how to conduct surveillances, how to lead surveillances, how to do interviews, and how to be administratively sound. Although at the time I didn't realize that how beneficial it was, but it turned out to be beneficial. But it was, if you look at it from a statistical standpoint, it was a failure.
Right, yeah, for the bang for the buck. But as far as you personally, though, and your professional growth, it was invaluable.
Oh, it was. It was. I mean, it gave me the experience needed when it was time for me to step up to the plate to really perform. And in this instance, it was when Mike McDaniels actually left the group and he went to headquarters, he left me a case, me and my then partner, Ron Brown. And that case was Alvaro Ariavi. M3960123, I think is the case number. But that case, it was you. If you're lucky enough, you get a chance to work that one case in your career that kind of defines your career, and it gets you to the next level. And that was the case. We had we started off on that case. I remember we did one affidavit. And that affidavit had the request and the approval to intercept the wire communications from 4 hard lines. I think it was 6 cell phones, numerous tracking devices, and I think we had like 8 clone pagers. And we also had the first ever surreptitious entry where we broke into the trafficker's business legally and installed eavesdropping devices and cameras. That case was phenomenal, and we worked that for it's about a 2-year case.
2-year case, and was that the only case you were working at that point?
Yeah, that was all we could. We can, when I say we, the team, that was all we could concentrate in the group. I mean, it was all hands on deck for 2 years. Required a lot of work, and the midst of doing that case, ironically, the command staff made a decision to transfer our supervisor from DEA over to FBI and transfer the FBI supervisor over to DEA. And they took half of our group and moved them over to FBI and half of FBI over to DEA. This was 4 months into this investigation. And I'm like, I hope they know how to work these cases.
Did they?
They did.
Okay.
They did really well. More importantly, the leader that they brought over, Jim Finch, phenomenal leader. He was very astute in working more street level type cases, so he knew dope. But what he knew better than that was he knew how to give you what you needed to get the job done. He wasn't a micromanager. He allowed you to do your job and do it, and just supported you in terms of what you needed.
He's open to feedback.
Oh, great guy. We'll get into it later on, but he was, if you remind me, he was very instrumental in me becoming an SES with DEA.
What was the outcome of that case?
That was just a quick story on that case. I mentioned that we had eavesdropping devices in the business, and I also mentioned that Mike McDaniels had left a CS for us. This particular CS also would receive calls from Colombian traffickers quite frequently. And on one occasion, he got a call from a Colombian trafficker, and the Colombian trafficker provided him a pager number and instructions to call a pager number and to collect like 200 keys of coke he was going to pick up. So got the CI placed the call, started talking to the recipient of let me go back. Contacted the pager, a cell phone, calls our CI. Our CI starts a conversation with the individual who called. So this call goes on, and they hit it off right away because both of them of Colombian descent, and that's a big thing. They kind of got the trust right away. They got the trust, so they agreed that they're gonna give over at least anywhere from 200 to 300 keys of coke. So we get through with the call, go back to the office, and we look for a translator to translate the call for us because it's all in Spanish. Go up to one of the translators. I said, hey, can you kind of work on this real quick? I know you're on the wire right now, but let me know what's going on in the contents of the call. Translator pushes play, and she's, oh my God, That's Alvaro Ariavi. That's the guy that we were up on all those phones. We had no idea because he was using a different pager and a different phone that we knew about. What was really interesting about it is we go back to the eavesdropping devices and we start playing them. You can literally hear the pager vibrating on the table when our CI called that number. It was pretty neat.
It is, yeah, especially for back then.
Yeah.
What year was this?
This was probably 98,
Okay.
99, somewhere around there.
Early on.
I'm
in your career.
terrible with dates, but somewhere in there.
Yeah, I am too. Well, nobody would know the difference now, the listeners.
Yeah. So anyway, it worked out well, and ultimately we placed the call. We arranged to pick up the dope, and we picked the dope up and followed the guy who dropped it off back to his house. Hit the house, and I think there was 400 keys in the house. Flipped the guy in the house, and it just
spider webbed out.
It went on from there. Ultimately, I think we ended up seizing in that case probably anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 keys of coke. Different seizures, not just one. Different seizures as we went along. Millions of dollars in proceeds and multiple arrests. And probably more importantly is it was a multi-jurisdictional investigation. So we were spinning folks up in Miami. Miami was spinning us up. New York, we were spinning New York up. It was a great case.
Did that lead into a lot of proffers and spider webbing further out to other investigations?
It did. But interestingly, when we finally took it down and when we arrested the folks and we brought them, specifically Ariavi, for example, I'll use him because it was a litany of people that we ended up arresting. So we bring Ariavi to the office, and back then we didn't have digital technology, right? We had cassette tapes, and we had 3 cassette tapes. One was the original evidence, and the other one was duplicate evidence. And I had this thing that I used to do. So we had all these pictures that we had on surveillance that I would hang them up on the wall, and we have them all around the wall.
Like in the movies.
Like in the movies.
Yeah.
And literally, after we did all these intercepts, we had shopping carts, like you go to a grocery store, full of cassette tapes. So we put those cassette tapes in the shopping cart, and I roll them into the interview room. And we go pick him up. We bring him in, and I say, hey, don't say anything. We push play. And then we use, I cherry pick a call that resulted in a seizure, and you play that call and he just drops his head. So we really, very rarely did we have to go to trial. When they heard him, when he says, hey, I'm going to bring the engines to you and I'm going to drop them off at the corner, walk and don't walk, and we get it from the corner, walk and don't walk. It's enough evidence to.
Well, I always hear that when the feds, when they finally move in and they go in to wrap up a case and start doing the roundup, I mean, they've investigated enough and they put enough resources into an investigation. That's why their success rate is so high if it does go to trial, because they've got it pretty locked down.
Yeah. So in those kind of cases, it really is, if you could substantiate that the evidence and the probable cause that you use to get the authorization to do the intercepts, if you win that, it never goes to trial. Very rarely does it go to trial. If they're going to get you, it's going to be on, did you have an actual need to intercept?
So that was the first big, kind of put you on the map in big success.
Yes.
Successful case.
Yes.
When you were working on that, I mean, you're in the middle of it and you're seeing good leadership, and you actually have people that take you under their wing and they kind of help nurture your career and your skill set and show you the ropes, because sadly that doesn't always happen in certain parts of even here in DPD it doesn't always happen. Mr. Finch is his name?
Yes.
So you said he was instrumental in helping you and developing for your promotion?
Yeah, so, and it's later down the road, but we worked together, Mr. Finch and I, for maybe 2 years, I think is what it ended up being. And needless to say, he had a very a great career with FBI. I mean, he really moved up through the ranks. And as time progressed, I would still call him. He was definitely, I considered him one of my mentors.
What about his style?
Oh my God, he was an awesome leader in the sense that his expectations were very high. He didn't meddle. As I say, he doesn't. I believe in this. He didn't micromanage, but he was micro engaged. So he always knew what was going on. He always kept up with what was going on. But rarely or never did he say, "Okay, this is the way I want you to run this case." His questions were more like, "What do you think is the best way to do it?" So things like that, and the fact that when you're working an investigation of that magnitude, you're going to have some blowback in different divisions and stuff. But he always handled it. He always supported us in the way that we needed to be supported. So that's why I say he's probably one of the best leaders that I've worked for. And as time would go on, he ended up getting real high in FBI. And when I started applying for jobs as an SES or senior executive service, I called him up for some advice, and I said, "Hey, there's some openings, and I'm going to put in for a lot of jobs. I'd like to know what you think about that." And we went through this whole thing, and he walked me through the process. And I said, "I'm going to also put in for LA. I'm interested in that." He said, "You're going to put in for LA?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to put in for LA as well." And he says, "Okay." He says, "I'll talk to you later." Hung up the phone, went about my business, and I got a call back from him maybe a day later, and he says, "Hey, it's done." I said, "What do you mean it's done?" He said, you do realize that I worked with the administrator of DEA at FBI. I said, "What a small world, you know."
Well, in people like that's connected like that, if he didn't believe in you, there wouldn't be no phone call.
Well, absolutely, and I'm not going to say what he said to him. I'm flattered in terms of what he said, but undoubtedly, I know for a fact that's what swayed the decision.
Of course,
yeah.
But he clearly recognized your hard work and your qualities. That it is okay to be rewarded for that.
Yeah. And I only bring it up from the standpoint of how appreciative I am of what he did for me in a very competitive environment.
So in 2014, you promoted to ASAC.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk about that? That was in the Little Rock District office, and can you describe the title ASAC?
Yeah. So ASAC is Assistant Special Agent in Charge. It is one level away in most divisions from the Special Agent in Charge. And as an Assistant Special Agent in Charge, you will have the opportunity to actually work in the same division office with the SAC, or you'll have the opportunity to be Assistant Special Agent in Charge at what we call a standalone office. Both of them are equally challenging, but working in a standalone office is considered to be the epitome of the opportunity, because you don't have a SAC there, a special agent in charge. You are the lady or the guy over that office or that area.
And that was at under the New Orleans Field Division?
Yeah, that's correct. In that office, the Little Rock District Office oversaw the Fayetteville resident office, Fort Smith posted duty, as well as the Little Rock District Office. So it was three offices, probably about 80 to 90 personnel that you were responsible for over the whole state of Arkansas.
Okay. And what was some of the biggest challenges? Because that's a big job. I mean, you're basically the SAC is the right hand.
Yeah, it was. I tell you, it was the biggest challenge going into that job was I had up until that point had assignments or was requested to go different places to either fix something or to establish something. And in this case, I was asked to. I was selected for this position, and my predecessor was probably one of the best assistant special agents in charge in DEA, a guy by the name of Bill Bryant, who incidentally ended up being over the state police in Arkansas. So I'm coming behind this guy.
You got big shoes to fit, yeah.
Oh, I heard it every day. The biggest thing for me was the biggest challenge was to go in there and understand that everything didn't need to be touched. If it was going good, I didn't need to mess with it. I kind of got this saying. I said, every fire hydrant doesn't deserve to be pissed on to leave your scent. And that was the biggest problem for me, or biggest challenge, I should say. I had to sit on my hands and say, it's going right. I mean, administratively, the office was sound. They had great relationship with the state and locals. I mean, phenomenal relationship with state and locals, phenomenal relationships with the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Why is that so important? I want you to kind of explain that having a good relationship with the state and the locals. Why is that important?
Well, the quicker you realize, okay, and this is the difference between a good federal agency and a good federal group and a bad one is, the quicker you realize that you're actually a guest in the city or state that you occupy, the better off you are. Because the fact of the matter is, we never have enough DEA agents to staff groups completely. We depend on our state and local relationship and our state and local partners. That's the only way. That's the only way it works.
Well, it's good as a leader to recognize that.
Yeah. I mean, and the ones who don't, they don't
last.
They don't make it.
Yeah. They don't move on up to say.
No.
So I was reading about some of like the 2015 case. It was a lot of the meth cases and a huge prescription pill initiative.
Yeah.
We talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the prescription pill initiative I can't take credit for that. It was the SAC of the Northern Field Division at the time. His name was Keith Brown. And Keith had a philosophy that I adopted, was that, listen, good ASACs, they generally do their job and they do what they need to do and what they're required to do. But great ASACs have to have an additional initiative along with their normal duties. So in this case, our initiative at the Little Rock District Office was to initiate and start 2 diversion-related cases. One of them, we focused on doctors, and the second we focused on a pharmacy. Okay, in this case, the doctors that we were targeting worked at a pain clinic that was literally right around the corner from our office. I mean, I could do surveillance by looking out my window or looking at the camera. I mean, it was pretty convenient. So we focused on that pain clinic. It was amazing. You get to the office, and I think the pain clinic opened at about 9:00 in the morning. I drive by to go to my office, and I look in the parking lot, be nobody there. Not a soul there. A little bit later, about 8:30, you see people coming up. By 9:00, there's so many patients wrapped around the building to go in to get the prescriptions. It was unbelievable. So ultimately, we ended up, I think, arresting 4 doctors from that pain clinic, and maybe it was actually a nurse practitioner as well. And the dosage units of stuff that they had in there that shouldn't have been in there was amazing. But more importantly, the prescriptions that they were writing for no legitimate medical reason was unbelievable. So really, really productive investigation that actually led us to some degree to the pharmacy that was filling some of the prescriptions. So we focused on some pharmacies based on that and identified some pharmacies that were filling prescriptions outside of a medical need as well.
So I know we worked, even here in Dallas at a street level in a certain part of town. We assisted the DEA task force here in Dallas on something similar. So I don't want to talk about all the trade secrets of how the investigation works. But basically, these pain management places, they would get people to come in and they would bad back, and it'd usually be like a muscle relaxer and a hydrocodone. But then they would couple it with some anti-anxiety medication. So basically, they'd go to a certain pharmacy and fill these prescriptions, and then they'd come back, and the ones that really were not usable, it's trash.
Yeah,
just get rid of them.
Yeah,
but the ones that they can make the profit of,
that's the
they'd start. Yeah, and then it's interesting. And you're bringing back a lot of memories from me sitting here talking about that, because that's big business.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's one of those things that that I'm proud of our agency for really paying attention to, because listen, whether you believe in that term called gateway drug or not, it's a real thing, right? And when we look at prescription drugs, okay, and this is the thing that you have to realize, especially as a parent. Most of the folks who become addicted to prescription drugs, they didn't do so out of a need or a want to get high necessarily. Something happened. Either they play football, they were working legitimate jobs and got hurt on the job, some type of injury that caused them to go to a physician, and the physician prescribes medication. And in some cases, they overprescribe the medication. Then hence they become addicted. And then eventually that doctor says, I'm no longer going to prescribe you these drugs. So it leads into, how can I recreate that high given the fact that I can no longer get it from a physician? And what does it look like? It looks like heroin now. That mimics the high that you get from opioids. So that's the big issue with prescription fraud and prescription medication abuse and things of that nature. And the thing that, from a parent standpoint and even an adult standpoint, you have to ask yourself sometime, do I really need to take this pain medication?
No, I agree. And because we've seen too many times. I mean, I've had multiple injuries, multiple surgeries, and I really don't like how they made me feel.
Yeah.
I will say that, like, some people will use the pain pills to sleep and stuff, and they would make me very drowsy, but give me the anxiety, so I did not sleep.
Yeah.
So kind of, that caused problems, and and I'm glad you brought up the point about gateway drugs and the pathway, because there's many pathways of despair, and starting with something, a doctor gave it to me, but it's a very powerful narcotic.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like you said, when it's taken away, people look for different avenues to get that same high, and you start going down to the hard road.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's one of the things that I failed to mention that we did do, and all the initiatives that we did that focuses on the diversion of legitimate medications, is we always took a holistic approach, and that approach also involved education. It also involved making sure that we had something that kind of wrapped around that from a 360 standpoint, to make sure that we weren't just going out focusing on, and when we did focus on doctors, it was those rogue doctors. It wasn't the doctor that were doing the right thing. But it is a holistic approach. It is making sure that you do education, that you bring kids in, you bring parents in, and things of that nature, and you make sure that you attack that from all levels.
Of course. And then some of the doctors are like the doctors that, most of the doctors are doing the right things for the right reasons. Yeah. But then there are some that are taking some, little extra money to the table to go ahead and get some people stagger in that they're not even diagnosing. They're just writing a script to, and then sending them on their way, and then they're being filled.
Well, a perfect example is the case that we just talked about in Arkansas. That pharmacy was owned by a father and son team. The majority of the narcotics that they dispensed from there illegally was done after hours at night. It wasn't when legitimate customers were coming in.
Yeah, it wasn't during banker hours.
Right.
It was like a after night club.
Yeah.
So in 2015 was also as December, I believe. You had another major career move for you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's when I was blessed enough to get the opportunity to become the associate special agent in charge of the Los Angeles Field Division, which is also called the deputy SAC. So that was one of the greatest achievements of my life, quite frankly, from a professional standpoint. Just to be able to get that opportunity.
LA's that's a big one.
Man, it's LA.
Yeah.
It's LA.
Yeah.
So it's funny story about LA is, as I told you, I went to Houston out of the academy, and I looked at that list and I seen LA on there. I was like, hey, ain't no way.
Too intimidating. Yeah.
No
starting
way.
off.
Well, that and financially, I was like, ain't no way in hell I'm going to LA. It's like, I don't think we can afford it. And then you fast forward to, I think it was 2013. My wife and my kids, we went to LA to on vacation to visit, and we were walking around seeing the sights, and my wife and I look at each other and we say, I think we could do this. And it was like an epiphany that we might want to try this, and instead of saying no, summarily saying no, and maybe giving an opportunity.
Can you describe the stage of just professional growth for you in the DEA going there?
Well, I'll tell you this. By the time I arrived in LA, I needed every leadership lesson that I had that preceded that. It was a culmination of everything that I had did up until that point. leadership wise and case wise to bring to bear, dealing with what we were dealing, the sheer scope of LA. In LA, that area of responsibility include Southern California, Los Angeles, Riverside. We also, our area of responsibility was Hawaii, Nevada, Guam, and Saipan. So it was sheer in nature. It was huge.
Yeah, that's it's not just Beverly Hills.
That
No,
just
it's not.
sounds overwhelming. I mean, not only is it California, it's like half the islands of the world too. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very large.
Once you got in there into LA with you're on the big stage. I mean, you've worked on a lot of big stages, but this is the biggest, right?
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
into LA.
Nothing close.
Nothing close. Okay, from a leadership standpoint, though, you're at a much higher level. What did you look at it as far as like, okay, I've got to, and I know you have an approach where some things don't need to be changed or meddled in. What are some of the things you had to, when you got there, you had like, all right, we need to go in a different direction?
Well, the biggest challenge I had when I got there was hiring and retaining top talent. That was the toughest thing when I arrived in Los Angeles, and more importantly, when I ended up getting promoted from the number 2 job to the number 1 job in Los Angeles. That was the biggest challenge the division had at that time. We had supervisor positions that were vacant, and they were vacant for a long time, and we had folks that were occupying the positions in the acting capacity. So just imagine trying to get somebody or convince somebody to move to Los Angeles. Quick story: when I was leaving Little Rock, they gave me a going away celebration. My wife attended, along with some very close friends, one of which is your chief of police. He attended. So he shows up, and we end the ceremony, and we're about to walk out, and I'm talking to folks, and I see your chief in a deep conversation with my bride, and I'm a little concerned. I don't know what this conversation is going to be.
He is a handsome fellow.
Yeah, well, not only that. So I'm watching out of my peripheral, and I was like, this is going to be good. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be good. So they wrap up the conversation, and I show my wife out, and the chief comes up to me, and he says, "Oh, dude, you owe me big time." I said, What do you mean I owe you big time? He says, "Your wife just asked me, would you consider going to LA? Would you even go to LA? Is he making the right decision by taking this job in LA?" And of course your chief says, "Oh yeah, it's a great job, great opportunity, great experience. Definitely needs to take this. He'll never get an opportunity like this again." So as time goes on, we get into it, and I told you my biggest challenge was attracting top talent and retaining them. Not just attracting, but retaining them. And I knew your chief had a unique ability to, as I call it, recruit. We looked at ourselves as if, like him or not, like Nick Saban. We wanted to recruit the best talent around when we wanted to get them in. And we had ways that we would do it. So I called your chief up, and I said, "Hey, remember the conversation you had with my wife?" He said, yeah, you still owe me on that one. I said, "A quick question for you. What did you tell her?" I told her that it was one of the best divisions, one of the largest divisions, a hell of an opportunity, and you should take advantage of that. And but it's expensive there, is what he said. I said, "So everything other than being expensive, do you agree with what you said?" He said, "I see what you're doing."
Right.
He says, "Absolutely I do." I said, "Well, okay." I said, "I need you here. I need you to come down. I need you to have my 6. I need you here so we can turn this division to where it needs to be." Not that it was bad. It
always be better.
It always could be better, but we really had a deficit in staffing. So he agreed on some conditions, and he did ultimately come. And when he arrived, I looked at him and I told him, I said, "Now you can looked my wife in the face and be honest and said, you would come to LA.
Right. So that was at that time you were the special agent in charge.
That's correct.
And you recruited him
to be the deputy, to occupy the similar position that I had originally got a
elevated to. From that.
Yes.
I got to ask you this though. So we're gonna get into more of the Danny Como, but you know, every step you go, every move you make, and it happens within our department, you have success at one stop. Okay, what worked over here in Little Rock area and in this division, what worked in Houston, may not always work where you move. You're going up higher on that ladder, but you're going to different parts. Mm-hmm. It is sometimes hard to recreate success.
Yeah, it is. But what I would say is success may be hard to recreate, but there are certain things that a leader can do to recreate success, even if it looks different. Okay. And that's all about how you develop, right? How you mentor people, how you put them in a position to be successful. That's how you get results. So for me, it was always, and it is very simple. It's all about creating the best team that I can create, putting people in positions, empowering them to do the job. And guess what? Allowing them to do the jobs. It's simple. And it's easy in that sense to recreate success everywhere you go. If you go in with the team mentality, and you arm people with the requisite knowledge, it's easy.
I've heard this before somewhere.
I have too. I think it's
Empowering.
episode 117.
Yeah, you have to look that up in the Rolodex and find out which one. Now,
yeah.
I keep going back here, and maybe it's just me being petty, but this wasn't extremely long during your career as the token black agent of the DEA. That sticks in my head right now, and I really hope the guy's listening.
Yeah,
I hope he hears it and eats crow. Sorry, that's just me.
Yeah, he. You know what? In a lot of ways, I look back on that, and I think I handled it professionally. Not that I needed external motivation, but it was great external motivation.
You definitely used it and maximized it.
So you get you lure Daniel Como to come work with you over there to kind of make LA the best it could be, and it's interesting that it kind of goes back to what you're describing as far as your leadership style goes back to in a lot of ways coaching.
Yes,
you mentioned Nick Saban. I mean, it goes back to that. So we actually have we got a little letter here from somebody. Margaret, take the mic.
Dave, how did we get so lucky to have you in our lives? You're so much more than a friend and amazing leader. You are our brother in every way that truly matters. From the very beginning, you've been someone we can count on for wisdom, for laughter, for honesty, and for the kind of loyalty that's rare to find. When we asked you to officiate our wedding, you didn't just say yes. You went out and became ordained and poured your heart into the words, and you gave us a ceremony that we will cherish forever. And when Danny retired, once again, you stepped up, emceeing the celebration with that perfect mix of humor, respect, and heart that only you can deliver. You have this incredible ability to make every moment, big or small, feel more special, more meaningful, more unforgettable just by being part of it. But Dave, it's not just about the big events. It's about all the in-between moments. It's the way you believed in us when we doubted ourselves. It's the way you've listened without judgment. The way you've given advice that always seems to land exactly when we need it. And the way you've shown up time after time, no matter what was going on in your own life. You've celebrated our joys, stood with us through challenges. You've been a steady, trusted voice through all of life's highs and lows. You've given us laughter when we needed to lighten up, perspective when we needed clarity, and a gentle nudge when we needed to move forward. We love you, DD. We are grateful beyond words for everything you are to us, and we are honored, truly honored, to call you our brother. Stop. With all our love and appreciation, the Comos.
Cheers. I get older, I get more emotional. Y'all eat no more of these. my wife is often telling me now, you need to man up. And I don't know what's wrong, man. That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we I talked before. We try to make these special for the guests, and you're no different. Thank you, Comos, for doing that for us and doing that for David. I know it means a lot to him. So
you can tell that was so well written. Just for the record, she's much smarter than your chief. But
she might be one of the sweetest people I've met.
Oh,
recently.
she is.
I mean,
she is. Oh, yeah.
I met her for about 5 minutes, maybe, at dinner where she was at a restaurant that I was working at off duty.
He outpunted his coverage.
The next day, she remembered me from that instance, or she acted like she did. I don't know if somebody coached her, but it felt genuine to me. And even again, she was just. I mean, she's amazing. I'm really looking forward to having her around more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rita, for sending that over. And yes, very sweet person.
Yeah.
Sweet people. We're excited to work for Chief Como.
Yeah. You got and so I think I know him well enough to say that you don't work for him. You work with him. And that's just those little subtle differences. They mean so much. He is not going to be the guy that says, now if he has to, he will make a decision. He will hold people accountable. But he's a big believer in team, and you guys don't work for him. You work with him.
He said that to me. Speaking of leaders, can you talk about, I want you to talk about when you met Margaret.
Oh, I think I've known Margaret now for 11 years or somewhere around there. Margaret was, we worked together in Los Angeles. She was a supervisor in one of the areas in Los Angeles when I arrived there, and I think Margaret and I probably got a lot closer, maybe a year or so after I first arrived there. In fact, her office was the office that I would go to when I just needed to get away, when things were in the course of a day, and I know she probably got tired of me, but in the course of the day when things got tough, Margaret would find myself on the other side of her desk, sitting there talking, just chatting it up. And of course I would, why you got all these crumbs on your desk? Anyway, yeah. So she was that kind of steady voice. And what makes her special, at least from the position that I previously occupied, if you're really in this for the right reasons, you want to surround yourself with people who genuinely care and have a voice, and they're willing to use it. Okay, Margaret truly speaks truth to power. Doesn't matter your position. Now, if you just want things to go on hunky dory and you think you're doing well, she's probably not a person you want to have around you.
So I want to speak to Margaret and the trauma team. Can you talk about what you saw and the importance of what Margaret's mission was and the trauma team? And Margaret, please jump in on what you saw from your perspective of how David worked with you.
Well, I'll just start by saying every organization, not just law enforcement, right? Every organization needs some semblance of an employee assistance program, or whatever you may call it. Everybody has a different terminology of it. And the way I view similar programs is simple. In a crisis or when things happen, that is the glue that puts things back together. Whether it's something severe in terms of a critical incident that involves a shooting, or something personal that you're going through. They all hold the same weight of gravity, and to have something in place to deal with that as it happens is absolutely essential. And you can almost be held, in my opinion, you should be held liable if you don't have something in place to deal with it. And I can go on about this because from the standpoint that I'm not sitting here today to tell you that I'm an expert in wellness and all that. In fact, I'm going to tell you that I'm not. But I can tell you I know how to surround myself with people who do it. And in the Los Angeles Field Division case, that was Margaret. She dealt with some incredible things there. And that truth to power thing, you got to have somebody who's willing to speak truth to power in that position, because things won't be going right sometime. You got to have somebody who is willing to come up to you and say, hey, listen, I know, David, you're thinking about doing it's wrong. We need to do it this way, and this is why.
And Margaret, you spoke on that before. You talked about that, about he interacting with David and him being, he's the guy in charge. He's the chief.
Yeah.
And can you talk more about that?
Sure. I mean, so I didn't know him very well at the time, but as we've spoken about before, I had been on trauma teams since 1995, and at that point, I was a much older, stronger advocate about using the trauma team, and a lot of experience, unfortunately, that I felt strongly about one incident, and it's a brief story. It was actually my first time that I actually talked to David about this. But we had a supervisor over at our HIDTA who was a task force officer supervisor. He worked for LA sheriffs, and I had gotten a call from a friend of mine that said, hey, did you hear that he lost his son in a car accident? And I said, no, I didn't know. And I honestly don't remember if you called me, David, or if I called you, but I remember where I was. I was sitting in a beauty salon getting my hair done. Mm-hmm. And I had, for the ladies, you're getting your highlights done. I had foils in my hair, and I'm starting to work the phone, and David and I speak, and he's the SAC, so I called him Mr. Downing. It took me a long time to stop calling him Mr. Downing. But he said, oh, I spoke to him. It's okay. He said he's fine. And I said, no. That's not what we say. I said, I will explain to you why later. But the specifics on this was that his son and daughter had been in a car accident up in Idaho, and the city that he was in, that the city where the body was, and the daughter was okay. Him and his wife, the sheriff supervisor, were about to head up that way. And I know we have an office with DEA there. So as trauma team hat is put on, so to speak, I wanted to use our resources there and deploy a trauma team to meet him, to help him meet with the state police to find out the circumstances and just help liaison with him. So I had a plan in mind, and I wanted to put it in motion. But what David did was he said, no. You tell me right now. You tell me right now what I did. And I'm thinking time-wise. I want to get the help there ready for when he arrives. I want to, deploy the trauma team, et cetera. And I stopped because I realized, oh my gosh, this is a new SAC. He doesn't know me. I don't know his experience with the trauma team. Okay, I'll tell you.
Since you asked.
Yeah, since you asked. When somebody, especially it's far away, and we have offices all around the world, I was like, we need to get help. We have to be proactive about this, and we need to get people to help, because he doesn't know what he's thinking right now. He just lost his only son. And he doesn't know if he's fine. He doesn't even know. He probably doesn't even remember the drive up there with his wife. So he heard me, and then after that, I think that started a different level of our relationship, because he called me then on out for the critical incidents that followed, and we set up kind of a chain of command where you would call your people out, and then I would call my people out, sort of a thing. So,
yeah, it's one of my challenges. Okay, that I had when it came to that type of stuff is I was hyper focused and understood the need to engage physicians and get help when needed during the most grave incidents. And I hesitate by saying it or characterizing it like that. When you have the obvious, right? When you have a shooting, when someone is shot or we shoot someone, it's automatic. I want to make sure we get the necessary help we have out here. Where I failed miserably at is understanding that there are other levels that you also need assistance. Okay. In cases when somebody may be going through a divorce, or the obvious where somebody may be stricken with alcoholism or whatever it is. Those are not as obvious for whatever the reason. It wasn't for me. I'm just going to talk about it. It wasn't for me. I had to educate myself and get myself to the point where I understood that still requires a response. That requires response. And I got better with that, I think.
Well, that speaks to your flexibility as a leader, as opposed to being rigid and no, this is, you were open to recognize it within yourself that this is not a strong point.
Yeah.
And something you needed to be maybe perhaps better at.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think most leaders probably want to hear the uncomfortable truths, but not all of them are capable of drawing it out of their people.
Yeah.
So having people that are comfortable enough with you to actually tell you the things that you're asking to hear that you don't always want to hear, like them telling you the things that they don't really want to tell you, that says a lot about you as a leader also.
No, thank you.
We also have I know you told me not to do any more, but
Thought we were done with that.
no, yeah, not yet, Mr. Downing. We have another letter. Margaret, would you help us out?
So the trauma team was implemented in the late 70s and was one of the first of its kind. It offered assistance and support to law enforcement personnel following a shooting, line of duty, tragedy, physical or emotional trauma. Since its implementation, all federal and most local law enforcement agencies offer peer-to-peer programs to all employees and family members affected by natural disasters, acts of terrorism, line of duty deaths, suicides, and shootings. The objective of the program is to minimize psychological trauma that employees and their families may experience throughout their career in an attempt to accelerate recovery to abnormal events, many of which are unique to law enforcement. As an executive director, Mr. Downing was well-versed in understanding and recognizing signs and reactions to a critical incident. As a group supervisor, ASAC and SAC, he ensured the respective divisions he was assigned to in Atlanta, Houston, Los Angeles, and Little Rock had trained members of the trauma team who had expertise required to help fellow agents, employees, and family members reestablish control and chart a path to problem resolution. He was proactive, providing resources and professional oversight from the EAP's psychological personnel. Without his leadership, many of the critical incidents in the divisions he worked in would have gone without these valuable services. Time after time, he ensured that employees were provided to help them in some of their most vulnerable times. Elise Sharp.
Blast from the past.
Yeah. She's special. She's special. That's the glue that keeps things together.
Well, she clearly thinks a lot of you.
Yeah.
Your journey to leave a legacy of leadership of those that you interact with, and I mean, look, our chief now. He is from your legacy tree of leadership. Can you talk about how important that is to you?
No, that's everything. I mean, if you're in it for the right reasons, you're not in it for yourself, right? It's not about you. I got this thing, and I mean this to my very core. When you become a leader, it's no longer about you. It's about everybody, every single soul that you're charged to lead. That's what leadership is about. And for me, at least me personally, where I gain complete satisfaction is not personal achievements, but the achievements of all those that I've had the absolute pleasure to be a part of their lives and to be a part of their team. When I see a young man or a young lady who is a journeyman 13 agent and they become a 14 and they get promoted, I can't tell you how good that makes me feel. I can't tell you even to this day that I'm gone when I hear about the agents that were a part of our team in Los Angeles, and I'm telling you, we're representing pretty big right now in DEA. To see those young men and women become special agents in charge in SACs and doing those types of things, that's my gratification. That's my payment, if you would. To see your team just foster and thrive and move on, and when you do it and it's done right, the real neat thing about it is at one time during that process, you were probably considered their mentor. Something happens when you do it right, and it shifts, and then you become mentored by them. That's the most gratifying thing that any leader can ever experience.
It truly is planting trees you won't see the shade of.
Yeah. So you think about that. That involves faith, I think, right? I think that when you look at that as selflessness, altruistic in nature, in the sense that you're looking at this from a perspective of, you should be looking at, I think, do you really need to actually see every single leadership moment that someone does? Or can you be equally satisfied to see the end results? And the end results look like a well-functioning team where you have folks that hold each other accountable, and everybody wants the team to succeed at the fear of letting their teammate down.
Perfectly put. As a leader, and the higher you, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but the higher you go up, the view expands, and the responsibilities broaden. So as a leader, people have to go do their job, and as a leader, you have to put people in harm's way sometimes.
Wow, let me tell you something. There's not a heavy is the head that wears the crown. I just say it like that. I mean, if there's one thing that I made sure that I was hyper focused on during those moments of, you're potentially putting somebody's life in jeopardy. Okay, that is probably the ultimate when it comes to leadership, right? I don't think that there's a greater responsibility that you have to make sure that you're doing things right, you're doing them safe, and that ultimately the goal is that everybody goes home at night, comes home. Everybody comes home. Everybody comes home. And what does that look like? Are you making the right leadership decisions? Are you, more importantly, right? And this is very important. Are you self-confident to know that the decision that you're about to make may not be a decision that you need to make? And I'll qualify that. I had some young men and women in the Los Angeles Field Division that operated are high, the likely of high violence in search warrants and things of that nature that were, as far as I'm concerned, they were experts. And there were times that I would look at something on paper and say, hey, we probably need to do it this way. And they would come in and say, hey, boss, no, we need to do it that way. Listen, you got to understand when you need to step back, when you're not the SME, when you're not the subject matter expert, and you allow the people who know how to do the job to do the job. And in that case, I had a lot of opportunities with the groups that we had in LA to allow them to flourish in that manner. And I like to think that we were really safe because of it.
Yeah, I've mentioned before, and I've actually told Chief Como this, that is, like in Margaret's role when she was part of the trauma team and educating people on wellness, or where to get a resource that could, if they were struggling, they knew where to go. They knew where the lighthouse was.
Mm-hmm.
And it is our job to prevent leaders like yourself, like Chief Como, from having to hand over a folded flag.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, wow. Huh. I don't. Again, I'll go back to it and say that's when you're at that level in law enforcement, whether it's federal, state, or local, that's something you don't want to do, and the responsibility that you have to take. But you just hope that whether it's death or whether it's an injury, that you can properly manage the situation, or lead the situation, I should say, from a perspective that you don't make critical errors, because you don't get a do-over. You get one time to do it right. To call a parent and let a parent know, whatever the circumstances were, that their child passed away that's a tough thing to do.
So I want to move into another big moment in your life. May 31st, 2019. How did that feel?
Sunset?
Sunset.
Yeah, that, as much as you try to prepare for retirement, I don't know that you can do it all the way. Now, I had a goal during my career is I wanted to leave out on the highest note that I can leave out, not position-wise, but being very, really effective in what I do. That was my goal when it came to retirement. And when I retired, I still probably had somewhere around 4 to 5 more years on the clock that I could actually continue working. But I knew it was the time for me to walk away. Now, the good and bad of that is when you walk away when you don't have to, you still have that certain thing inside of you that burns to say, should I have left? Should I have left? I have more to give. I have more to contribute to the mission. But I knew at that time because of some personal reasons, I had some things businesses that I were doing on the side. And I knew at that point that it was really time for me to kind of pull back and now concentrate more earnestly on my beautiful family.
In this profession and a lot of the public safety professions, it's so difficult to retire. Like, it's such an emotional experience to stop working. Like, I don't think plumbers and bankers and lawyers are like, I don't want to be my last toilet, but I'm clogging this one and I'm done. Like, I don't understand why there's something about these careers in public safety or even just service that really kind of get you and you don't want to stop doing it.
I think it has a lot to do with the mission. I really do. And I mean that. I let me qualify that. So I always tell folks that when we do what we do in law enforcement, we have a lot of skills that are transferable. That if you decide to retire, you can take them off into the public sector or private sector, and do things there, okay? And there's countless opportunities out there for you. But none of them have the mission that we have in law enforcement. None of them requires the requirement for you to believe in your brothers and your sisters. Your very life depends on it, right? And when you leave and when you go, for me personally, I find myself always trying to recreate that team atmosphere that I had in law enforcement. It is undeniable. I miss DEA to an extent, but it's not really DEA that I miss. It's the people. It is the people that I had the absolute pleasure to be a part of their lives and they be a part of my life. When I get that phone call and I look down and I see a number from somebody that was a part of the team that we were on, the absolute joy that I get 6 years later that they still call me is phenomenal.
You touched a lot of lives, and a lot of lives touched you. That being said,
when it comes to David, there's no shortage of things to say about his character. 35 years ago, he made a life-altering decision to give his time, love, and guidance to a 6-year-old boy who needed a father. That single act speaks volumes about the man he is. His words of encouragement have never been forgotten. His advice, always steady, heartfelt, and wise, like a compass pointing true north. Over the years, David has been a rock, a steady presence. He didn't just speak love, he showed it with action, with integrity. He has protected, provided, and continues to pour wisdom into every moment. I truly believe that my life would have turned out differently if he hadn't been that voice in my ear that I didn't want to let down. Thank you for unconditional love. Philip Campbell.
Philip was David's little brother. That when he was a probation officer in Sarasota, David and Anita worked, got to know him, and he's still in their lives. They're very much brothers. So I know he had a huge impact for both of them.
Y'all hit below the knees. Philip, this quick story. I had an opportunity, extreme pleasure to. Philip built his second house. A month ago, my wife and I had a chance to go visit Philip at his house. And I go back to, you mentor people, right? It's an absolute pleasure when they get to the point where you feel like they're mentoring you, and that's where our relationship is now with Philip. Next week or this weekend when I go home, Philip is going to be driving from Sarasota, Florida, with his daughter, who he's dropping off for college in Atlanta, and he's staying at my house when they come. And this is the second of 3 daughters who's going to college now. He's a phenomenal father. His wife is phenomenal. The kids are phenomenal, and my life is much richer because he's in it.
He clearly feels the same about you. We got a few more, so warn you.
David Downing has been more than a leader to me. He has become like family, specifically a father figure. He helped me lay the foundation for my leadership style and has played a major role in shaping the leader I am today. David is the epitome of selflessness, always considering the needs and feelings of others. One year during Secret Santa, he even pulled his own name and rather than redrawing, chose to purchase a gift for every member of the team. I truly pity those who have not had the chance to experience a leader like David. I am forever grateful for him, and I will carry out his legacy by continuing to demonstrate the values he instilled in me, as well as passing them on to those I am charged to lead. Thank you, David. Jasmine Owens.
I gotta stop.
David Downing is the example of servant leadership. He expressed it not only in his words, but also in his actions. While there are many examples I could share from the job itself, the one that stands out to me happened on a deeply personal level. In 2004, I transferred to the Atlanta division on a voluntary move so I could be closer to my mother, who was sick at the time. I arrived in June, and sadly my mother passed away in January of 2005. While my family and I were grieving, Dave, my new supervisor, and several members of my group came to my parents' house to express their condolences. I had barely had time to get to know Dave or the rest of my team in those short months, but that didn't matter. They were there for me, with Dave leading the way, offering compassion and support when it mattered most. When I arrived in Atlanta, Dave paired me with someone many would have called my polar opposite. Like me, he was from Georgia, but his thick southern accent made him sound like he was from the deep south rather than the Atlanta metro area. He also had the memorable habit of dipping and spitting into trash cans or empty soda bottles. Later, I was paired with another partner, an exceptionally talented and thoughtful agent, but with a personality a bit more like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. I say that endearingly, in case he ever reads this. It was a 3-person partnership. Under Dave's leadership, our little team became a dominant force. We weren't perfect, no team is. But Dave never led through yelling or intimidation. Instead, he used influence. He created an environment where we had autonomy, felt heard, and were comfortable offering feedback, suggestions, or alternative ideas. He held us accountable and provided that appropriate level of correction when needed. Our group developed a genuine connection that has endured to this day. Years later, in 2023, when my father passed away, Dave, his wife, and my 2 former partners came to the funeral home and sat with me for a long time. We laughed and shared stories as we reminisced about old times. I could share countless work-related examples of Dave's leadership, but the empathy he showed for me and my family during some of the most difficult days is something I will never forget. More importantly, it's a standard I've carried with me throughout my own leadership journey. Proof that servant leadership is as much about compassion as it is about results. Take care, Denise Foster.
Denise she's actually a retired SAC out of Puerto Rico. When I talk about the ultimate pleasure is when the mentor becomes the mentee. She called me up and we were having a conversation one day, and we were talking about something, and it was obvious that it was a challenge that she was facing and she needed some advice on it. So I set out to give her my wisdom and my advice. Halfway through it, she stops me and she says, listen, I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want you to walk me down the path based on my own experiences and knowledge and arrive at my own decision based on those things. In other words, David, I want you to coach me through this. It was mind blowing. I was like, okay. It sounds little and subtle, but it shifted kind of what I do. In fact, when I talk to her now, when we're talking about something, I said, are you asking me for advice or do you want me to just listen? That's Denise.
Again, learning.
Yeah.
Learning.
Yeah.
We have another letter here from something that's it's a little different than the other ones, but I think it's impactful and it shows who you are as a person outside of the realm of law enforcement and actually leadership, but it shows more of the human side.
Mr. David has played a big role in my life and my recovery. I was in the drug court program from 2020 to 2023 in Fayette County. During this time, I also started at Zaxby's. One of the owners was very involved in the program and in everyone's recovery since he was in the DEA. Mr. David gave me plenty of talks and words of wisdom, along with holding me accountable to my recovery. He was always there if I was struggling to stay sober. He would always say he believes in me. I never wanted to disappoint him, so I pushed to stay sober and get through the program, in which I did. I'm now 5 years sober, and one of the main people I can thank is Mr. David for being a big part in my recovery. Gracelyn E. Waller.
She's one of our best GMs at our Zaxby's. In fact, we're going, I think next month she's getting married. We're going to her wedding.
We're almost done with these, but you're looking at me like you want to punch me right now.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought we agreed on one.
Yeah, no. Yeah, don't worry. We'll edit all these out. Just kidding. So I do want to shift gears though from, we'll go back to some things, but the leadership trainings. Mm-hmm. I want you to talk about the important work, and the reason you're here in Dallas right now. You're not just to be on a little podcast nobody listens to, but it's to make our leaders better and waking up and leveling up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Margaret and I started this in earnest after DEA. We did it in DEA. Well, she did it in DEA after DEA for some time now, and I'm just blessed to be a part of. Again, we talk about team and partnership, but having a team and a partnership with Margaret. I'm just the guy to carry the paperwork. She devised this whole program, and I believe that we come into these things and we're really tense and stressed out before we start, and then when we leave, we're dead tired, emotionally drained, but have such a sense of accomplishment when we leave that we hopefully, if done right, imparted some degree of leadership tools that folks can use to kind of fortify their leadership practices. And that's kind of the goal on it, I think what makes us different as a team, specifically Margaret, it's not your normal thing, right? And I think that's where when we do this with the chiefs and they sit down, they come into this thing probably thinking, oh God, it's going to be death by PowerPoints, and we're going to be sitting here and somebody's going to speak to us as opposed to speaking with us. And our approach is a little bit different, and it's facilitating a conversation and engaging folks based on their experiences, right? And bringing all these experiences to the table at one time, and hopefully walking away with a better understanding of maybe how to accomplish certain things. And the ultimate goal, though, is to make sure that we fortify team alignment, and that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that. And sometimes you think things are fine, right? But people just don't have conversations. And specifically, they don't have what we call crucial conversations on occasion. So what you see on the surface may not be what it is. So we're hopeful that if there are some blind spots or some things that need to be fortified that during the 2 days that we're here, we can do that. And I can tell you that, as I always said in the opening, when we walk away, we're going to probably walk away with some knowledge that we didn't even have when we first got here.
I think David's being humble about how this started.
Of course he is.
But, I think if I could describe him, he's the king of possibility. He sees possibilities in every single person that he meets. He doesn't see you just as you are. He sees you and where you could be. And I didn't know that at the time when I met him, and he pushed me to do the leadership training. And as I shared in our last talk, he took me out of my supervisory position and had me doing it. But he also had a plan that I could probably do this after and bring it to his business, and then go on beyond, and that's why we're now scaling up, because he's moved past his business and he's looking for a new goal on top of his new grandson. But he's going to be we're going to be scaling up and changing the name of Wake Up Level Up to
the Practice Leadership Group.
Yeah, LLC. So we're going to be scaling up and getting more resources. We still want to keep it grassroots, where it's a conversation. We don't want it to be corporate speak or anything like that. But I certainly would not have been here today if he hadn't seen something in me that I did not see in myself at all. So
I'll challenge that, but go ahead.
Well, you listen to both these episodes combined, you see a huge mutual of love and respect for each other, and it's refreshing to see. And it's also, I'm glad you brought up the point that it is a conversation as opposed to death by PowerPoint, because there's too many classes that people can sit there and play on their phone, look at Facebook or Instagram, or look at some mindless reel for 6 hours of the training and not really walk away with anything. And one thing that struck me in Margaret's episode, when she talked about getting the leaders, and I have not sat through the course, but getting leaders to talk about a moment that they were, down in their life, in their career, and the feeling that they had at that moment, and then having them maybe look at the people that they lead might be in that same position, and I think that's that's a lens I think that any leader, any professional should consider that.
Yeah, and Margaret does a phenomenal job in leading discussions on that. And in a nutshell, and I'll let her expound on it. It deals with vulnerability. And you want to add to that, Margaret?
Well, it's about building trust, and we all talked about it last time about if somebody knows everything, then it's hard to trust that person.
There's a person that knows everything.
Yeah, right. And part of trust, even with your friends or whomever is in your life, is being able to say, "I'm not perfect," and there's different levels of vulnerability. We go a little deep with the vulnerability in ours for the purpose of building trust, but reminding people to show the human side of themselves as leaders so that people can relate to them more, and that builds that trust.
Absolutely. As opposed to looking at every problem as a nail and you got to be the hammer.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that, sadly.
Yeah.
I want to go back to, we're going to get personal. I want you to talk about your family, just because behind every man, about every one true professional, there is somebody they go home to.
Yeah.
And I just want to give you that opportunity to talk about your wife and the strength that she's given you in this journey that you're still on.
Yeah. God bless her, that she deals with me. Yeah. So Anita Downing, we met in college. We talked about Troy. She was up there on the academic scholarship, and I was up there on sports. So that explains it, that she's the brains behind the operation. But I'm proud to say that in this profession that it's pretty hard to maintain a marriage like that. And we've been married for 34 years. We just celebrated our 34-year anniversary. And listen, I tell you, she's a special person, and I wouldn't be where I was in law enforcement for her. I distinctly remember times, specifically when I was an agent in Houston starting off, and even when I was my first supervisor job in Atlanta, Georgia. I remember one time that I was working so much, and it back then the bad guys always used pagers, right? So we would clone their pagers, and I had this government green notebook, and at one time I probably had 10 clone pagers attached to that notebook. Because we didn't have digital stuff, we had to literally write down the incoming calls in this book. And we were out to dinner, one of the few times that we were out to dinner, because we couldn't afford to go out that often. So we're out to dinner, and these pagers are just going off, and of course I'm looking at the pagers, and I'm trying to talk with my wife and my 2 kids, and she looks at me and she says, we get home that night actually, and we're at the house, and she looks at me and she said, you were there, but you weren't there. She said, it's something has to change. And it was at that moment that the light switch for me went off, that I had to do better as a husband, and I had to do better as a father. And I endeavored to do so. And I took that conversation and I moved it forward when I first got my first supervisor position. It was the first thing that I asked when I reported to Atlanta with Denise and others, my backup supervisor. Do you guys have kids, and do you guys coach? Yes, I coach my kid in soccer. I have a kid that's in the band. I go all these different functions. I said, well, the one thing I'll promise you is you won't miss another one. Because when it's time for you to go out to go to baseball practice, you go. We'll hold down the fort on surveillance. Call me before you come back. If we've cut surveillance, you don't come back. If we need you, you come back out. And I say all that to say that, the lives that we lead in law enforcement, it is really tough on our families. My wife is a trooper. She never stopped any opportunity that I had. She had one place, and I won't mention it, that she refused to go to on the transfer. But by and large, she was willing to go everywhere. And with that, my kids were willing to go everywhere. I have a son and a daughter, Alexis and Joseph, who have both made me a grandparent, pop. So I have a granddaughter, and I have a grandson as recent as last week. So very supportive. My kids, my daughter's actually involved with helping Margaret and I, because we're old heads, getting more sophisticated in what we do in our leadership program. And my daughter's a teacher. One of the absolute best teachers that she struggled with academics to some degree, and she has that soft spot where she understands, and she's probably, now I'm biased, one of the best teachers you can get now. She's phenomenal as a teacher and a mother. My son, he graduated from University of Arkansas, and he is now living in Hawaii. He started his own business where he harvests coconuts and he sells coconuts, and he's doing extremely well in Hawaii. And, I always say that, I never had to worry with my kids. I never had to go buy them out of jail. They were always there when they even seen Pop with stress, whatever I was going through. So yeah, if it wasn't for them three, my tight circle, it wouldn't have been possible.
So with that, I think we have our final letter.
I don't think I can.
I'm up. I'm ready.
Okay.
David, remember when we would write letters to each other in college and when you were at the DEA Academy? Well, this is a letter to you telling the world why I fell in love with you and what kind of man you are. After 37 years together and married for 34 years, we have spent more than half our lives together. We have grown both individually and collectively in so many ways. I see the same man I met in 1986 that I see today. You are confident, witty, compassionate, and so selfless. You are the perfect husband to me, the perfect father to our 2 children, and the perfect pop to our 2 grandchildren. Even though I did not work outside of the home for many years, you would always manage to make me feel like I was an important part of your career, especially when I would hear you say things like, I was a better agent because my wife stayed home with the kids. Whenever you were up for promotion and it involved a move, you would say, I have to discuss it with my wife. We would always discuss the pros and cons of the move. You would often tell people, I had the hardest job as a stay-at-home mom, and would often correct other men if they said, "My wife doesn't work, she stays at home with the kids." You would say, "Oh no, don't get it twisted. She works harder than you." And just the other day I heard you say, when we retired from the DEA, you were referring to me and you when clearly you were the one employed with the DEA. This is what I love about you. It's never just about you. You always manage to make time for others and include them in whatever journey you are on. I see this in our family, in your past careers, and continue to see this daily. You are confident enough to share the limelight and allow others to shine. This is just a piece of who you are. I can go on, but I will just say thank you. Thank you for making me feel important when there are times I did not. I'm a better woman because of you. Thank you for protecting our family and always putting us first. I love you so much, and I'm so proud to be your wife and partner for life. Anita.
I'm going to take a quote from Clarence in It's a Wonderful Life. You see, David, you really have had a wonderful life.
David, we just went on a very long journey, an emotional journey, and it is a peak in your life. And I know the listener, we've been here for 2 hours, and the listener is getting a little idea and a little glimpse into your life and your world, and personal and professional. I am walking away from this incredibly impressed with your selflessness and your dedication to making people around you better. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I've got a final question here for you. It says, can you give some words of wisdom to leaders out there that you believe is crucial for them to learn so they can be the most effective leader, but also prioritize taking care of the people below them?
Yeah. I'm probably going to regurgitate something that I said earlier because it's kind of like the hallmark of what I believe that you should embody or observe as a leader. And that's simply that when you're cast into that leadership position, it's no longer about you. That notion that you are, and you call it what you want. You can call it servant leadership. You can call it what I think it's just understanding that when you become a leader, you have an absolute obligation to lead and lead at the highest level. I always say that when you realize these positions, there was inevitably somebody somewhere who's seen something in you and decided that, hey, I'm going to proffer a recommendation for this person because I believe that they will be an outstanding leader. So the question that I have for leaders who just became leaders, or leaders more importantly that have been leading for a while, is a simple question. And that question is, are you servicing that recommendation debt? Are you doing the best that you can do to pour into and affect lives positively, specifically those that you're charged to lead?
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, and I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey Mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up.